Let me ask you a little more about your interview with the former president, Pervez Musharraf. He seems to have given you a lot of details about Pakistan's nuclear systems. Was this an on-the-record briefing?
I wouldn't say that. He acknowledged that there were talks after 9/11, basically, is what he did.
But he also told you about tunnels, and
no.
Could you tell us more about what he told you?
I beg your pardon?
You also mentioned in your article a system of tunnels, etc. Could you tell us more and expand on what he told you?
Well, no. What happened is I mentioned to him that one of the things I learned is that in the last few years, 4 or 5 years, an awful lot of trafficking. You know, your government's nuclear facilities are separated. This is obviously done, this is a normal procedure, I must say, but also done with our help after 9/11 and certainly after you became nuclear. Certainly after 9/11, one of the things that was explained to us back then, 8 years ago, after the attacks in America, when we got a new relationship with your government through Musharraf, one of the things that was done is your warheads are separated from the actual bombs, the actual nuclear material, and they're separated from the delivery system, the missiles and the F-16s or what you have. And when the components are moved, initially, this was of great concern to us because initially in a crisis, the components would be moved by truck. And I learned that actually what your government has done in the last dozen years, 10 years, is built a series of tunnels, underground tunnels quite deep. And I mentioned that it had two purposes, one of them being to protect from attack, hidden, and secondly, to keep Big Uncle, that's what a derogative term used for our satellites, our America, from knowing what you're doing. And Musharraf did acknowledge that to me. Yes, the tunnels are so deep that they're also deep enough so that even a nuclear bomb, let's say from India, couldn't destroy what's below. So it's a safety mechanism.
So Musharraf was verifying information.
From our, yes?
Sorry, so Musharraf was verifying information you already had. Let me just tell you something that just been handed to me, actually, coming into this conversation with you. Muhammad Ali Saif, who is the former president's barrister, he's clarified that this conversation, President Musharraf says, has been grossly misquoted. In answer to the question on the safety of Pakistan's nuclear weapons, the former president had said that they were absolutely safe and not even a nuclear strike could threaten their safety. So have you misquoted the former president?
Well, certainly I would agree with him that he told me they were safe, and I think the article makes clear that he certainly was very strong in defending the ability of the armed forces and expressed great confidence in their ability. And he also made clear to me he knew nothing about the current talks, so none of that I wrote. And if you don't know much about the New Yorker magazine, which is, as you know, it's fair to say extremely prestigious. It's where every serious journalist, I spent many years at the New York Times as a major journalist for them. It's where we all die and go to heaven at the New Yorker. One of the things it has is a very rigorous and strenuous fact-checking system. And actually, Mr. Musharraf was in conversation with an employee of the New Yorker whose family comes from Karachi, a young fact-checker who spoke very good Urdu, and that's her native language. And there were conversations galore between Musharraf and my office. And so the idea that something I said isn't something he said, there was something I think he wished we didn't write. I can understand that. And we did modify some of the things he said at his request. I mean, just took out some stuff. But essentially, it's not a question of whether he said it or not. It's just I think he's sorry he said some of the things he did say.
Okay.
But that happened.
And you are a highly respected journalist. I said that right at the beginning of my conversation with you. But your analysis has left some readers disappointed here in Pakistan, given the fact that a lot of your writing seems to be based on your personal experience, be it with one or two people, and really a social analysis as opposed to anything substantive. For example, people saying Allah Hafiz. And is it really fair to base your opinion of Pakistan and the rising fundamentalism in Pakistan, as you say, on your own social interaction with people?
Well, you know, it's interesting because I did mention the fact that I saw some differences, and I asked a lot of people about it, just in terms of casual entertainment with alcohol not being served, whereas it was 4 or 5 years ago. This is rather common. I talked to a number of Pakistani people. There's been a change. There's been a change in being more careful, and certainly it's not a profound insight, and it wasn't something I made a big deal about. But I will tell you that in talking, in doing an awful lot of talking, I spent 5 months working on this piece. I don't think there's more concern now. Obviously, Pakistan is a secular country. It's always voted secular. It's not in crisis. There's a strong middle class, but there certainly is a growing concern with fundamentalism. You see it now with the attacks on your street. There's more attacks than ever. That doesn't suggest that in an election tomorrow, a jihadist party would win. That's absolutely not true. But you are seeing some increasing violence, particularly as you respond to the American pressure, your military, to attack your own people, in a sense, your fellow Pashtuns, in Waziristan, and also the operation in Swat, which left an awful lot of people homeless and with not very many social amenities right now. And I think you're going to see the same thing happen in Waziristan. Those people coming out are going to not have very much social support, and you're going to end up in Pakistan as generating more anger at the government, at the central government. And so I also will tell you there's an enormous amount of friction that I could detect in personal conversations between the military and the civilian leadership. I don't think there's any question about that. This isn't a great time for Pakistan, and I'm not sure my country is helping you very much in all of your problems.
No, it's not. It's not a great time for Pakistan, but Pakistan's military and Pakistan's people seem very determined to battle the militancy here. But yeah, just one more clarification with you.
Nobody would say otherwise.
One more clarification with you.
And the notion that I'm anti-Pakistan is comical. I'm many good friends from years back in Pakistan, and I like visiting Pakistan. The sociability and the automatic friendship that Pakistanis give to foreign visitors. And by the way, also, for all of the anger at America, and there's extreme anger at America in many places, as my story reflected. I talked to senior people who were very angry about the American role and the idea that we can push and tell Pakistanis what to do. This is only directed at the leadership. American citizens are treated extremely well and with great courtesy and great respect by the Pakistanis. And I certainly was. I was invited to home after home after home when I was there late this summer.
Well, one final clarification with you, Mr. Hersh, if I may, before we have to let you go. There is a lot of concern here about your articles and the sources you use, and you've said that the New Yorker checks and checks again, as well as you being a highly respected journalist. It's a respected publication, but you once wrote about Dick Cheney having a hand in Benazir Bhutto's assassination.
No, I think I categorically, that was a story that was published. There was an interview I did in Dubai when I was giving a speech there, I think about 6 or 7 months ago, and somehow it got mangled. I said, I was asked about it. I said, of course I know nothing about who took care of Mrs. Bhutto. I have no idea. And the idea that Cheney had something to do with this loony, and I immediately fixed it. That was one of the few times I responded. When as soon as I saw that story getting spread around, I called up and talked to a number of newspapers who quoted me immediately as saying that's completely untrue, and a transcript of the interview shows it was just seriously badly translated. That's one of the things that does happen. It's very difficult sometimes when you're speaking in Arabic and it gets translated and it's a bad translation. The question asked me if I knew anything about it, and I said absolutely not. Of course not. No, Dick Cheney has a lot of problems in my book. I've been very critical of Cheney and George Bush, and also very critical of the notion that they had the right to assassinate high-value targets in the global war on terrorism around the world. I have been critical of him galore. I think it's illegal and unconstitutional what they've done, but I have no information about who killed Mrs. Bhutto and never professed it.
Seymour Hersh, thanks very much indeed for joining us live from the United States.